My name is Charlie McClendon. I just finished taking my HESI test and I did well, I think, in my opinion. I want to talk to you about how I studied and then what to expect when you take the HESI. I watched a lot of videos that gave me some very helpful advice, and I wanted to share with you my experience because everybody's experience is unique, and in addition to that, I think I did pretty good. So I'll show you my results first, so that way you can decide if you want to keep listening. So overall, I made a 95.6. So I'm not trying to show you like my information, but I made a 95.6, and then in each section I had, you know, an A to some degree. So I had a 94 in reading comprehension, and grammar, which I knew was going to be my lowest, I had a 90. In mathematics I had 100, which surprised me because of a few questions. And then in vocabulary I had a 98. So all in all, I have a 95.6, and according to a lot of people, that's really good. So if you're interested in how I studied, so first of all, I used this book. As you see, it's pretty worn. I used this book and I used this app. So it's called Pocket Prep, and it has where it gives you like a question of the day, and it'll ask you questions, or you can do like a practice test and you can decide like which subjects you want. Okay, so anyways, I use those like daily. So I got this book probably 3 months ago. And I didn't use it every day in the beginning. In the beginning, I wanted to just kind of read through and get the content and figure out what exactly I needed to go over. So I learned at my school that I'm applying to, I don't have to have all the subjects in the book. So the first thing I went and did was I clipped off the subjects that I didn't need. So that was physics. You don't need physics. So I clipped those off. And then biology and chemistry. That way I'm not looking at information and getting sidetracked trying to figure out if I want to study this, or just getting distracted by stuff I don't need to see. So the first thing I did was I went through and I just read the information in there, and then I did the practice problems behind each section. And so each one of them, so what I mean by that is like they give you, so for example, this section in math, it's over decimals, right? And so then if you keep going, they give you, eventually you'll run into some sample problems. And so I did those, and then I checked my answer, I checked my progression. And yes, some things seem simple and they seem elementary or middle school like, but I still recommend you do them because we forget how to do those simple things. So yeah, go through the book step by step, just like you never learned it, and that is a good way to learn. And then after that, so at the end of each chapter, there is a somewhat bigger test. So you have, what's called a comprehensive test here in the back. You have what's called a comprehensive test. So it's like a whole math test. It gives you a bunch of questions. So what I did was instead of like focusing on that part, I just made a copy of all the ones that I would need, and I made one big test. So I stapled the math, the anatomy, physiology, the grammar, the vocabulary, and the A&P, and I made one big test, and I copied it. I made 3 separate copies, and then I stapled them. And so what I focused on at first was just going through and first just learning the information, just reading it, not taking notes. I just read it and made some highlights of things that I figured maybe I should look more into or be mindful of. The second time I went through and I made notes. So what I mean by that, so for like all my questions of the day, so these are questions that the app gives you. I wrote the question down and I wrote the answer down. If I got it right, I put a heart by the side and I put the date. And I put the date because sometimes the question's repeated and I wanted to know if I got it right the first or the second or the third time. And so if there were terms that I were unfamiliar with, or I thought I knew but that I really just didn't, I wrote those down as well. So I have a section, and then I put what subject they're related to. If you notice, I started studying physics and chemistry, and then I realized I didn't need to, so I stopped. And then I took like for real notes. Roman numerals threw me off, so I took like the notes of what each one meant, and then I made an example. This like also like the steps of glycolysis, stuff like that. And then also if it meant printing out something, I printed it out. So here is the example of muscular contractions, showing what role calcium plays in and how the entire reaction takes place. And so I did that for several things. If it was something I used to label, because I'm a slightly visual learner, and so some things I can just learn by seeing it. So I did that, or I drew things. Either way, I just made notes. I also made a copy of the conversion table that's in the graph. I'm sorry, it's in the book. There's a conversion table that they give you, and this is really important. At first I was like, I'm not gonna worry about it. No, you should. There are some things in here that you need to know, like how to convert a temperature, or how to do a metric conversion, or you need to know how many ounces are in a quart or a pint. So yes, go over there. Oh, and my last section was over YouTube HESI notes. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos from a lot of ladies that have taken it before and who shared their experience, and they really helped. Questions that maybe someone had, which I did have several questions that I saw other people had. So I'm so happy I wrote everything down. So after that, I took my comprehensive quizzes. And so the way that I did this was, like I told you, I made copies, right? So I went through and I answered the questions. I just sat down in one session, I answered them. And the first time I used my notes, and as you see, I still didn't do that well. And I started with like an 87.6 overall. So I had my husband grade it. I didn't grade it myself because I didn't want to see the answers. I knew if I saw the answers, I would remember them. And so I wouldn't put forth 100% effort in trying to answer it correctly. So the second time I did the same thing, except this time I didn't use the notes for everything. I used the notes for like 1 or 2 math problems, and I still counted those wrong because I used the notes. Although I got them correct, I still counted them wrong. So that helped me go back to see what I needed to go back over in my notes. I compared my first test and my second test, and I looked for questions that I missed both times, like the same question twice, or questions that I got right the first time but I missed the second time, or vice versa. And that helped me figure out, was it just my thought process, or was it something I really didn't know? And so the third time I went through, and so my overall was a 91. I went through this time and I answered the questions, and I still hadn't went over the chart when I did the third time, and so I used the chart to answer these 2 questions. So I still counted them wrong because I could not think of the conversion method for anything. So and this is like all the subjects that I went through, and I did the same thing again. So I went back to compare to see which questions I missed the first, second, and third time. Were there any questions? And I did find at least 2 questions that I continuously missed on all 3 tests. So I kept thinking something, I need extra help. So I went and found extra help. I went online and I printed out worksheets, and I really did it from a basic level. Like, I'm a middle school teacher, so I used middle school information. I didn't go anything further than high school because the math is very basic. It's not high school math, it's middle school math. And so is the grammar. Like, to know, some of that is even almost elementary. Sorry. So I went back to remembering what a predicate was, or a predicate adjective, or a predicate nominative. So I printed out stuff. This is my math section worksheets. I did conversions. I went through and answered the questions. And sometimes some of the worksheets you find they already have the answer, like they have an answer sheet. So I did two-sided, where I do the questions on one side and the answer sheet was on the other side, and that helped me a lot. And also for the English, so the predicates and predicate adjectives, because I kept missing those questions. Although I knew what they were, I was having trouble identifying them in the passage. So I just went and got extra help. So don't be afraid to go and pull up a middle school paper that explains what a predicate is, because it helped me a lot. So from this method, I was better able to identify like what they were asking me. Like, was it a difference? As people have commonly said, you know, there, and there, or between versus among, or less and fewer, stuff like that. So I will say, so let me just talk about the experience. So I got there, supposed to get there 15 minutes early. I got there like 7 or 8 minutes early. Make sure they have given you your right student ID number, and you have your information ready, because you have to know like your Evolve account information. So already have that stuff ready and waiting. Make sure you bring your ID. They give you a slip. You have to fill it out with your personal information. They give you a Post-it. You have to put your name on it. They take up your cell phone. I wore my Apple Watch, and yes, I had to turn that in. You can do the sections in any order. I took them as they went, and I was kind of, which A&P was first for me, and I kind of was nervous because I was like, but alhamdulillah, I did pretty good on it. It was actually a lot of the questions from the book and the app. A lot of the questions were maybe worded a little differently, but it was the exact same questioning format, like the content they asked me for. Math. So you get scratch paper, you get a pencil. The calculator, you have to click on the screen and it'll pull it down. It took me the longest to do my math because I did it for everything. I didn't want to, I found like when I was practicing, I would make like simple mistakes because either I didn't put a decimal, or I forgot to move something over, or I added something, like my mind went somewhere, so I added something wrong. And so I did everything on the calculator. Better safe than sorry was my opinion. Also, when you take the test, after you finish each section, it'll say like it's getting your report for that section. If you notice right next to that, it has your score. So that helped me a lot, because when I took the A&P section, I had a 94. No, I'm sorry, a 96. Yeah, a 96. And I was like, oh, it gave me a confidence boost. Like, it let me know you can do this. So I suggest maybe glancing over there every now and again, look at it. I mean, I know they tell you to wait till the end, but I couldn't help but look at my score, and it helped me a lot. And so what I learned was, you have 4.5 hours. It's not going to take you the whole time, but when you go in between sections, so let's say you finish the A&P section and you want to move on to the math section, before you open up the math section, if you take a break in between, when it's just on the home page where you choose the test, the clock is not ticking. So that's like free time for you to get up, go to the bathroom, or just walk outside, maybe, you know, clear your mind, get you some fresh air, whatever you need to do, and then come back. Other than that, everything went well. You get your overall score at the end. I was not aware that they break down your reading comprehension score, but they do. And after that, you just click out and they'll print your scores out. You get them immediately, so you'll know what you need to do. And if you don't do as well as you want and you need to reschedule, some schools make you wait like 30 days, some make you wait 60 days. My school was 30 days. Oh, sorry. If that's your first time taking the test, you'll also have to take a learning style section and like a personality characteristics section, which are like 14 questions a piece, and it's not too bad. They just want to know like what kind of learner you are and what kind of person you are. So all in all, everything went well, and I just wanted to share my experience because a lot of other people's experiences help mine. I'll put the link to some of the other websites that I use for practice questions. They're really resourceful, but a lot of times they just give you the same quiz over and over again. So book, app, then those questions. Just stay tuned, comment, like, and subscribe.